6 months after humanity's dramatic rejection of the Galactic Council, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Unity-1, humanity's first major diplomatic station outside of Council space. Through the thick, transparent metal, he could see something that had never existed before in galactic history. Ships from dozens of different species floated together in peaceful formation. Nexari trade vessels with their bright yellow hulls docked next to human destroyers painted in earth blue. Zephyrian science ships, with their strange organic curves, shared space with angular Krillian frigates that had defected from the Empire. All of them flew the new flag of the Free Galaxy Initiative. Admiral Kate Bennett joined him at the viewing port, watching as another group of ships approached the station. Hard to believe this all started with a mining colony refusing to back, down from a few Krillian destroyers. "The Council is making another attempt at communication," Morrison said, handing her the latest diplomatic message. "Prime Counselor Veltar is requesting renewed dialogue with human leadership." Bennett read the message with interest. "Their tone has certainly changed from 6 months ago. Back then they were giving us ultimatums. Now they sound like they are begging for a meeting." The transformation had been remarkable to watch. The Free Galaxy Initiative, which had started as a simple alternative to Council membership, had grown into a real government that rivaled the Council's authority. Unlike the Council's rigid hierarchy based on military strength, the FGI operated on principles of voluntary cooperation and mutual benefit. President Carter Williams appeared on the station's main communication screen for the daily briefing. He looked much better than he had 6 months ago. The stress lines around his eyes had faded, and he was smiling again. "Jake, Kate, we have updates from across human space," Williams said. "The outer colonies are reporting unprecedented prosperity. Trade with FGI partners has increased by 400%. And we are seeing technological exchanges that the Council never would have allowed." Dr. Elena Rodriguez joined the briefing from her new position as head of interspecies relations for the FGI. "The most interesting development is what we are calling the innovation explosion. When species are not restricted by Council technological limitations, they share advances at an incredible rate." Morrison pulled up the latest intelligence reports on his portable screen. "The Council is facing internal pressure like they have never experienced. 15 more species formally withdrew membership this month. The Krillian Empire is dealing with rebellions from worlds that want to join the FGI. "Any word from our old friend Ambassador Zexhai?" Bennett asked with amusement. "That is the interesting part," Williams replied. "Intelligence suggests he has been quietly sending messages to his home government recommending they consider joining the FGI. Apparently, the Krillian military is tired of being embarrassed by primitive humans who keep defeating them with improvised tactics." The irony was not lost on any of them. The alien race that had been most determined to conquer humanity was now seriously considering joining humanity's alternative organization. Chief Engineer Maria Santos, now serving as Director of Defensive Technologies for the FGI, joined the conversation with her latest report. She had become something of a legend after the Battle of Kepler 442b, and alien engineers studied her improvised weapons designs. "The collaborative defense grid is fully operational," Maria reported. "Every FGI member world now has access to our early warning network and mutual defense protocols. If the Council tries to intimidate any member, they will face the combined response of 78 independent worlds." Morrison was amazed by the numbers. The FGI had grown from humanity's desperate gamble into the largest voluntary alliance in recorded galactic history, and it kept growing every day. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent priority transmission. Former Ambassador Lisa Harper, now Secretary General of the FGI, appeared on screen with news that would shock the galaxy. "Everyone, we just received a formal communication from Prime Counselor Veltar himself," Harper announced. "The Galactic Council is requesting to join the Free Galaxy Initiative as an equal member." The silence that followed was complete. The organization that had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years was asking to join the alliance created by the species they had tried to subjugate. "What are their conditions?" Bennett asked when she found her voice. "Complete restructuring of their government, abandonment of hierarchical species classification, and adoption of FGI principles of voluntary cooperation," Harper replied. "They are essentially offering to dissolve the Council as it currently exists and rebuild it according to our principles." Morrison shook his head in amazement. "So we go from being threatened with conquest to being asked to accept the surrender of galactic civilization itself." Williams looked thoughtful on the screen. "What is the recommendation from the FGI General Assembly?" Harper smiled, something she had not done much during her years as a council diplomat. "The debate is ongoing, but the consensus seems to be that the galaxy is big enough for everyone, as long as they are willing to play by rules based on respect rather than fear." As the briefing ended, Morrison returned to the observation deck. The view had changed again. A new ship was approaching Unity 1, flying the old Council colors but requesting permission to dock under FGI protocols. It was a symbolic moment that represented the changing galaxy. Admiral Bennett joined him one final time at the viewing port. "Think they will adapt to our way of doing things?" Morrison watched as the former Council ship was guided to dock alongside vessels from species that had been enemies just months before. Representatives from dozens of worlds were working together, trading freely and sharing technology without the restrictions that had held back galactic progress for centuries. "Humans adapted to space travel, asteroid mining, and galactic diplomacy," Morrison said. "We proved that any species can adapt when the alternative is becoming obsolete." The Free Galaxy Initiative had become more than just an alternative to the Galactic Council. It had become proof that cooperation could triumph over domination, that diversity was stronger than uniformity, and that sometimes the best response to a threat was simply to walk away and build something better. In the U. And humanity had not just rejected the Council's diplomacy, they had created a new form of galactic civilization that others wanted to join. The galaxy was still full of different species with different cultures and different ways of thinking, but now they could work together as equals instead of being forced into an artificial hierarchy. As Morrison watched ships from across the galaxy working together in peaceful cooperation, he thought about how it all started. A mining colony that refused to surrender to alien demands. A species that chose freedom over security. A people who decided that being independent was worth any risk. The humans had not conquered the galaxy. They had liberated it, and in doing so, they had proven something that would be remembered for thousands of years to come. Sometimes the strongest response to overwhelming force is not to fight back, but to simply refuse to be intimidated. Sometimes the best way to win is to change the rules of the game, and sometimes the most powerful weapon is the simple act of walking away and building something better. The galaxy was free, and it had taken a species that the aliens thought was primitive to show them what freedom really meant. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the viewing deck of Kepler Station and watched the stars. The space station was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. It had taken humans 5 years to build it this far from home. Now it served as the meeting place between humans and the strange alien races that filled the galaxy. Jake had been in command of the station for 2 years. In that time, he had seen things that would have been impossible to believe back on Earth. Creatures with 6 arms and glowing skin. Beings made of living crystal that sang instead of talking. Warriors with metal armor built into their bones. But today felt different. Today the aliens seemed afraid. Ambassador Lisa Carter walked up beside him. She was Earth's top diplomat, the person who handled all the first meetings with new alien species. Lisa was good at her job because she listened more than she talked. Right now her face showed worry. "The meeting starts in 1 hour," Lisa said. The Zephyrians and Vorthans are both sending their top military leaders. This is big, Jake. Jake nodded. The Zephyrian Empire and the Vorthan Collective had been fighting a war for almost 10 years. Billions had died on both sides. The war had spread across dozens of star systems, destroying entire planets. Both sides wanted Earth to pick a side and join the fight. What about the elder races? Jake asked. Are they coming too? That's what worries me, Lisa said. The Etherians sent their oldest ambassador. The Crystalline Dominion is sending 3 representatives instead of 1. They never do that unless something is really wrong. Dr. Kevin Walsh joined them at the window. He was Earth's top expert on alien biology and psychology. Kevin had studied every known alien race for the past 3 years. He knew their habits, their fears, and their strengths better than anyone. I've been reviewing the communication logs, Kevin said. Every time we mention humans in a military context, the elder races show clear signs of fear. Their heart rates increase. Their stress hormones spike. Something about us scares them. Commander Amy Rodriguez approached the group. She was head of station security and had been a Marine before joining the diplomatic corps. Amy was the kind of person who noticed details that others missed. I've been tracking the patterns too, Amy said. Every time the war gets mentioned around humans, the older alien species try to change the subject. When the Zephyrians asked about our military history last month, 3 different elder race ambassadors left the room. Jake frowned. That doesn't make sense. Humans are new to space. We've only had faster-than-light travel for 8 years. We have maybe 50 ships that can fight in space. The Zephyrians have thousands. The Vorthans have even more. Maybe it's not about the ships, Lisa said quietly. The conference room was packed. The massive table in the center could seat representatives from 20 different species. Today, only the most important ones were present. War Commander Thex represented the Zephyrian Empire. He was 8 feet tall with gray skin and 4 arms. 2 of those arms ended in natural weapons that could cut through metal. The Zephyrians had built their entire culture around warfare and conquest. Fleet Admiral Kess spoke for the Vorthan Collective. Her species looked almost human, except for the blue skin and the extra set of lungs that let them breathe in different atmospheres. The Vorthans were merchants and miners who had turned to war when they ran out of resources to buy. Ambassador Zareth of the Etherians sat across from them. The Etherians were old, older than any other known race. They looked like tall, thin humans made of silver light. No one knew exactly how long they had been traveling between the stars, but some estimates put it at over 10 million years. 3 representatives from the Crystalline Dominion took up one side of the table. They were living gemstones, each one the size of a small human. When they spoke, their voices created harmony that was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Jake and Lisa took their seats. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. War Commander, Thex spoke first. Humans of Earth, the time for neutrality has ended. The Vorthan scum threaten all civilized life in this galaxy. Join us, and we will share the spoils of victory. Refuse, and you will be considered enemies of the Empire. Fleet Admiral Kess slammed her hand on the table. Lies! The Zephyrians seek only conquest and destruction. They have already destroyed 6 worlds in their bloodlust. Stand with the collective, and we will protect your colonies and trade routes. Lisa remained calm. Earth's position has not changed. We will not take sides in your conflict. We offer our services as mediators if both sides are willing to negotiate peace. Both military leaders laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Peace? Thex said. There can be no peace until the Vorthans are crushed completely. The only peace possible is the peace of Zephyrian graves, Kess replied. Ambassador Zareth stood up slowly. When the Etherians moved, everyone paid attention. His voice carried the weight of ages. You speak of forcing the humans to choose sides, Zareth said. This is unwise. Some wars are better fought without certain participants. The crystalline Dominion representatives began to sing in their harmonic voices. The translation came through the universal communicators. The young races do not understand. There are powers that should not be awakened. There are capabilities that should remain dormant. Thex laughed again. You speak in riddles, old ones. The humans are weak. They have no great fleets, no planet-killing weapons, no warrior traditions worth fearing. Kevin Walsh spoke up from his position near the wall. Commander Thex, what do you know about human military history? Enough, Thex said dismissively. Small conflicts on a single world. Primitive weapons. No understanding of true warfare. Kevin looked at Zareth, who seemed to grow dimmer, as if the light that made up his body was fading. Tell them, Kevin said to the Etherian ambassador. Tell them what you know about us. Zareth was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. 3 million years ago, we encountered a species much like yours. They were young, curious, and seemingly peaceful. They had just discovered faster-than-light travel. They wanted only to explore and learn. The room went completely silent. A war broke out between two major powers, Zareth continued. Neither side was winning, so they decided to recruit these newcomers. They thought these young beings would provide extra ships and soldiers. Thex and Kess were listening now, their earlier arrogance replaced by curiosity. Within 50 years, both warring civilizations were extinct, Zareth said. Within 200 years, the young species had conquered or destroyed every intelligent race in their region of the galaxy. Within 2,000 years, they had turned on themselves and destroyed their own civilization in a civil war that cracked planets and turned entire star systems into graveyards. The silence that followed was deafening. You lie, Thex said. But his voice lacked conviction. The ruins are still there, one of the crystalline Dominion representatives sang. We have seen them. We remember. Zareth turned to face Jake and Lisa directly. Your species has a gift for war that surpasses understanding. You do not fight to win battles. You fight to win forever. You do not seek victory. You seek the complete destruction of anything that threatens you. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. We're not like that. Humans want peace. Perhaps, Zareth said, but war has a way of changing people. It brings out capabilities that should remain hidden. For the sake of all life in this galaxy, I beg you to remain neutral. Do not let them drag you into their conflict. Thex stood up abruptly. Enough of these ghost stories. The Zephyrian Empire will have an answer from Earth within 30 days. Choose wisely. Kess rose as well. The collective's offer stands for the same period. After that, neutrality will be considered an act of war against us. Both aliens left the room with their entourages. The elder races remained seated, looking at the humans with expressions that Jake could only describe as pity. Is it true? Amy asked quietly. Are we really that dangerous? Zareth's form flickered like a candle in the wind. We pray that we never have to find out. As the elder races filed out of the room, Jake looked at his fellow humans. They were just 5 people sitting around a table, trying to keep their small part of the galaxy peaceful. How could they possibly be the monsters that Zareth described? Outside the station windows, Jake could see ships moving in the distance. Both Zephyrian and Vorthan fleets were positioning themselves closer to human space. War was coming whether they wanted it or not. The warning had been given. Whether anyone would listen remained to be seen. 3 months had passed since the warning meeting at Kepler Station. The war between the Zephyrian Empire and the Vorthan Collective had grown worse. Entire star systems burned as both sides threw more ships and soldiers into the fight. The death count had reached numbers that humans could barely understand. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Kepler Station, watching the tactical displays with growing concern. Red dots showed Zephyrian fleets. Blue dots showed Vorthon forces. Both colors were moving closer to the yellow dots that marked human space. General Ryan Bell had arrived from Earth 2 weeks ago. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his time as a ground soldier. Ryan had fought in 3 wars on Earth before humans ever reached the stars. Now he served as the head of Earth's military forces. "The situation is getting worse," Ryan said, pointing at the display. "Both sides are building up forces around our colonies. They're not trying to hide it anymore." Admiral Sarah Kim stood beside him. She commanded Earth's small space fleet from her flagship, the UES Liberty. Sarah was young for an admiral, only 42 years old, but she had earned her rank by being smarter than everyone else in the room. "Intelligence reports show both fleets are at least 10 times larger than our entire Navy," Sarah said. "If they decide to attack us directly, we won't be able to stop them with conventional tactics." Ambassador Lisa Carter joined the group. She looked tired. The past 3 months had been filled with emergency meetings and desperate attempts to maintain peace. Both alien factions were demanding that Earth choose a side, and their demands were getting louder and more threatening. "Any word from the diplomats?" Jake asked. Lisa shook her head. "The Zephyrians have stopped responding to our messages entirely. The Vorthans sent a message yesterday, but it was basically an ultimatum. Choose them or be destroyed," Dr. Kevin. Walsh had been studying alien psychology and military doctrine for months. He walked over to the group carrying a thick folder of reports and analysis. "I've been reviewing how both species conduct warfare," Kevin said. "They follow very strict rules. They have codes of honor, limits on what targets they will attack, agreements about how to treat prisoners. War is like a game to them, with clear rules that everyone follows." Commander Amy Rodriguez looked up from her security reports. "That might explain why they're not afraid of each other. They know what to expect, but humans don't follow their rules." "Because we don't know the rules," Jake said. "No," Amy replied. "Because we've never needed rules to limit how we fight. We've always been able to stop ourselves." A communication alert sounded throughout the station. The main screen lit up, showing the bridge of a Zephyrian warship. Commander Vexitar appeared on the screen. He was even larger than War Commander Thex, with additional scars covering his gray skin. Vexitar had a reputation for being ruthless even by Zephyrian standards. "Humans of Earth," Vexitar said, his voice booming through the speakers. "The Zephyrian Empire has been patient with your foolish neutrality. That patience has ended. You will provide us with 50 of your fastest ships and 10,000 of your soldiers within 30 days, or we will blockade all human colonies until you comply." The transmission ended before anyone could respond. "Well, that was direct," Ryan said, dryly. Before anyone could discuss the Zephyrian ultimatum, another communication came in. This time it was Admiral Quindal of the Vorthan Collective. She looked almost human except for her blue skin and the breathing apparatus that covered the lower half of her face. "People of Earth," Quindal said in a voice that sounded reasonable and friendly. "The Vorthan Collective offers you a simple choice. Grant us exclusive mining rights to your asteroid belt and outer planets, and we will protect your colonies from Zephyrian aggression. We are prepared to station a full fleet in your territory to ensure your safety." This transmission also ended without waiting for a response. Jake looked around the room. "So our choices are to become weapon suppliers for the Zephyrians or to become a protectorate of the Vorthans?" "Those aren't the only choices," Sarah said quietly. Specialist Tony Martinez had been monitoring communications from both alien fleets. He was young but had a talent for finding patterns in data that others missed. Tony walked over to the group with a worried expression. "I've been analyzing their fleet positions and communication patterns," Tony said. "Both sides have been studying Our military history, but they're only looking at recent conflicts, wars from the past 50 years. They think they understand how humans fight. Dr. Helen Park joined the conversation. She was a psychologist who had been studying alien behavior and decision-making processes. Helen had discovered some disturbing patterns in how the alien species viewed conflict. They see war as a limited endeavor, Helen said. Something with clear beginning and ending points. They fight until one side gains an advantage. Then they negotiate. They don't understand the concept of total war. Kevin nodded. That matches what I've found in their historical records. Their wars have strict rules about civilian targets, cultural sites, and acceptable weapons. They see it as a way to resolve disputes without destroying everything. That's not how humans fight, Amy said. When we fight to win completely. We don't stop until the threat is gone. A priority message arrived from Earth. President Katie Turner appeared on the main screen. She was broadcasting from the United Earth Council chambers, where representatives from every nation on Earth were gathered for an emergency session. Citizens of Earth and our friends among the stars, President Turner said, we have received ultimatums from both sides in the current galactic conflict. After careful consideration, the United Earth Council has voted unanimously to maintain our position of neutrality. We will not be forced to choose sides in a war that is not ours. Broadcast continued with President Turner explaining Earth's position. They would defend themselves if attacked, but they would not become aggressors in someone else's conflict. Earth would continue to offer mediation services if both sides were willing to negotiate. Jake admired the president's courage, but he knew the alien factions would not accept this answer. Dr. Walsh received an urgent message on his personal communicator. It was from Ambassador Zareth of the Etherians. The message was short but alarming. Emergency meeting, Elder Council chambers, come alone. An hour later, Kevin found himself in a part of Kepler Station that few humans had ever seen. The Elder. Council chambers were designed for species that were millions of years old. The walls seemed to shift and change colors, and the air hummed with energy that Kevin couldn't identify. Ambassador Zareth was waiting for him, along with 3 representatives from the Crystalline Dominion and 2 creatures that Kevin had never seen before. They looked like massive trees made of living metal with branches that moved like arms. Dr. Walsh, Zareth said, his silvery form seeming more solid than usual. We must speak plainly. The situation has become critical. One of the tree-like beings spoke in a voice that sounded like wind through leaves. We are the ancients of the verdant reaches. We have watched civilizations rise and fall for 20 million years. We know the signs. A crystalline representative added their harmonic voice to the conversation. The war fleets are moving into position around human space. Both sides believe they can force your compliance through threats. They are wrong, the second ancient said. Force will not make humans submit. It will make them fight. Zareth moved closer to Kevin. Doctor, you must understand what will happen if shooting starts. Your species does not fight wars the way others do. You fight to eliminate threats permanently. We're not monsters, Kevin said. Humans can be reasonable. In peace, yes, Zareth replied. But war changes everything. We have seen what happens when humans believe their survival is threatened. There are no rules, no limits, no mercy. The crystalline beings began to sing in harmony. The translation was chilling. Once the storm begins, it cannot be stopped until everything in its path is gone. Kevin felt a chill run down his spine. What are you saying? We are saying that we are evacuating our civilians from this entire region of the galaxy, one of the ancients replied. We suggest your people do the same. When Kevin returned to the command center, he found chaos. Long-range sensors had detected massive fleet movements from both the Zephyrian Empire and the Vorthan Collective. Hundreds of ships were converging on human space from multiple directions. How long until they arrive? Jake asked. 18 hours for the first wave, Tony replied. Both sides are sending everything they have. Admiral Kim was already preparing the human fleet for action. We have 12 ships that can fight and maybe 6 more that can support them, against hundreds of alien warships. General Bell was studying troop deployment options. Our ground forces are spread across 15 colonies. We can't protect them all. Ambassador Carter had been trying to contact both alien factions, but her calls were being ignored. I think they've made their decision. They're going to force us to choose by attacking our colonies simultaneously. Jake looked at the tactical display. Red and blue dots were moving toward yellow ones like sharks circling their prey. In 18 hours, the shooting would start. What about the warning? Kevin asked. What Zareth told us about what happens when humans go to war. Maybe they're wrong, Amy said. Maybe we're not as dangerous as they The first shot was fired at 0347 hours, Earth Standard Time. Captain Bill Thompson commanded the destroyer UES Relentless, which was escorting a convoy of civilian ships carrying families back to Earth. The convoy included the merchant vessel Morning Star, which carried 37 crew members and over 200 passengers, including children. The Zephyrian patrol squadron appeared without warning. 6 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in front of the convoy. Their leader, Subcommander Kexhall, broadcast a simple message. Surrender your ships to the Zephyrian Empire or be destroyed. Captain Thompson responded according to standard diplomatic protocol. This is a civilian convoy under Earth protection. We are not part of your conflict. Please allow us to continue on our course. Kexhall's reply came in the form of plasma cannon fire. The Morning Star exploded in a ball of superheated gas and metal fragments. 37 human beings died in 3 seconds. Among them were 12 children under the age of 10. Captain Thompson's response was not diplomatic. The UES Relentless was smaller than any of the Zephyrian ships, but it was faster and carried weapons that the aliens had never seen before. Thompson didn't follow standard space combat doctrine. He didn't try to disable enemy weapons or force them to surrender. He simply destroyed them. All 6 Zephyrian ships were turned into debris within 4 minutes. But Thompson wasn't finished. The Zephyrian ships had launched from a forward operating base at Arcturus Prime. Standard military procedure would have been to report the attack and wait for orders. Thompson had different ideas. He tracked the attack force back to its source. Admiral Sarah Kim received Thompson's report while she was preparing the human fleet for the larger battle that was coming. The message was brief. Civilian convoy attacked. 37 killed, including children. Pursuing enemy to source. Will report when threat is eliminated. Eliminated? General Ryan Bell asked when he heard the report. He's going after an entire enemy base with 1 destroyer. That's what it sounds like, Sarah replied. Should we order him to return? Before anyone could answer, they received another message from Thompson. This one included video footage from the destroyer's external cameras. Arcturus Prime was burning. The Zephyrian base had housed over 3,000 military personnel and support staff. It included ship construction facilities, supply depots, and command centers for operations in that entire region of space. Thompson had arrived alone and systematically destroyed everything. He hadn't simply attacked the military targets. The human destroyer had eliminated the power generation facilities, the communication arrays, the life support systems, and the escape pods. When Thompson was finished, Arcturus Prime was a lifeless chunk of rock floating in space. How did one ship do all that? Jake Morrison asked when he saw the footage. Major Lisa Green had led the ground assault portion of the attack. She and her Marines had been deployed from the UES Relentless, while Thompson dealt with the orbital defenses. Lisa's report was even more disturbing than the space battle. The Zephyrians fought bravely, Lisa reported, but they fought like they expected us to follow their rules. They kept trying to surrender when they were surrounded, but we weren't taking prisoners. They kept expecting us to avoid damaging their cultural sites and civilian areas, but we needed to eliminate the entire base to prevent retaliation. Dr. Kevin Walsh watched the footage with a growing sense of unease. The human attack had been brutally efficient, but it hadn't followed any of the established rules of galactic warfare. There had been no warnings, no opportunity for surrender, no distinction between military and support personnel. "This isn't how space battles are supposed to work," Kevin said. The Zephyrians were probably expecting a traditional engagement, ship-to-ship combat with clear objectives and agreed-upon limits. Commander Amy Rodriguez had been analyzing the tactical data from the battle. Thompson didn't try to win a battle. He solved a problem. The problem was that this base could attack human civilians, so he made sure it could never attack anyone again. News of the Arcturus Prime incident spread quickly through both alien fleets. The Zephyrian commanders couldn't understand how humans had located and destroyed a heavily defended base so quickly. The Vorthan leaders were equally confused by the complete destruction of everything at the site. Both sides had expected humans to fight like other galactic species. They expected formal challenges, rules of engagement, and limited objectives. The destruction of Arcturus Prime was something entirely different. Commander Dan Foster was Earth's top military strategist. He had been studying alien fleet compositions and battle tactics for months. When he saw the reports from Thompson's attack, he immediately began planning larger operations. "They fight with honor codes," Dan told the assembled military leaders. "They have rules about what targets are acceptable, how prisoners should be treated, and when a battle should end. We don't know their rules. And more importantly, we don't care about their rules." The Vorthan response came 3 days later. Admiral Quindal personally led an attack on Research Station Echo, a human scientific outpost studying asteroid mining techniques. The station was clearly civilian, with no military personnel or weapons. Quindal apparently believed that destroying a human civilian target would demonstrate Vorthan resolve and force Earth to negotiate. She followed standard Vorthan military protocol by first demanding surrender, then broadcasting warnings to allow civilian evacuation. The humans at Research Station Echo refused to surrender. Dr. Janet Price, the station commander, sent a simple response. "This is a civilian research facility. We are not part of your war. Leave us alone." Quindal interpreted this as defiance and ordered the attack. Research Station Echo was destroyed with all hands. 43 human scientists and support staff died, including several graduate students who had been conducting their first research projects in space. The Vorthons expected this attack to bring humans to the negotiating table. Instead, it brought something much worse. General Bell activated a military protocol that most humans didn't even know existed. Project Midnight Sun had been developed in secret by Earth's military planners as a contingency for exactly this situation. The project's existence was classified at the highest levels of government. Colonel Steve Adams received sealed orders that he was not allowed to read until the project was activated. When he opened them, his hands were shaking. Captain Laura Scott was placed in command of the newly formed Human Expeditionary Force. Her briefing was conducted in a secure room deep within Earth's military headquarters. Only 5 people in the entire human government knew what she was being asked to do. "Captain," General Bell said, "the rules of engagement have changed. Both alien factions have now killed human civilians. They have demonstrated that they view our neutrality as weakness and our peaceful intentions as cowardice." Laura looked at the classified files that detailed Project Midnight Sun. The scope of the operation was staggering. "Sir, this isn't a military response," Laura said. "This is something else entirely." "Yes," Bell replied. "This is what happens when humans decide that a threat needs to be eliminated permanently. The alien factions wanted to see what we're capable of when we're forced to fight. Now they're going to learn." The Human Expeditionary Force was unlike anything Earth had ever assembled. It included ships, troops, and weapons that had been secretly developed for scenarios that military planners hoped would never occur. The force was designed not to win battles, but to end wars completely. Captain Scott's first target was the Vorthan Supply Depot at Kepler 7. The depot supplied fuel, ammunition, and spare parts to Vorthan forces throughout the region. It was defended by 12 warships and housed over 5,000 military personnel. The attack lasted 6 hours. When it was over, Kepler 7 no longer existed as a functioning facility. Scott's forces had not only destroyed the depot, but had also eliminated every ship that tried to escape and every communication signal that tried to call for help. But the most disturbing part of the attack wasn't the destruction. It was the precision. Human forces had specifically targeted the depot's command staff, navigation specialists, and senior engineers. The people who could have rebuilt or replaced the facility were gone. Within a week, the Vorthans lost 3 more major installations. The Zephyrians lost their primary shipyard and 2 fleet coordination centers. Both alien factions began to realize that they were facing something they had never encountered before. The humans weren't trying to win a war. They were systematically dismantling their enemy's ability to fight wars at all. Ambassador Zareth requested an emergency meeting with the human leadership. When he arrived at Kepler Station, his usual silvery glow seemed dimmed, as if the light that made up his body was fading. "It has begun," Zareth said to Jake Morrison. "What we feared most is happening. Your people are not fighting a war. They are teaching a lesson that will be written in the bones of both alien species." "They started this," Jake replied. "They killed our civilians." "Yes," Zareth said sadly. "And now they will learn why we tried so desperately to prevent this. The storm your people have unleashed will not stop until they decide it should stop. And humans do not make that decision, El." 6 months into what the galaxy now called the Human War, both the Zephyrian Empire and the Vorthan Collective had lost 40% of their combined fleet strength. What had started as an attempt to force human compliance had become a nightmare of constant defeat and incomprehensible human tactics. Admiral Sarah Kim now commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled. 300 ships of various sizes patrolled human space and conducted operations deep into enemy territory. The fleet had grown not through new construction, but through captured and converted alien vessels that human engineers had somehow made more effective than their original designs. Captain Jake Morrison had been reassigned from Kepler Station to lead special operations aboard the carrier UES Thunderbolt. The ship was enormous, larger than anything humans had built before the war. It served as a mobile command center for operations that defied every known rule of space warfare. The humans had stopped trying to follow conventional space combat doctrine entirely. Instead, they fought like they were performing surgery with a sledgehammer. Their tactics were crude, but devastatingly effective. Commander Amy Rodriguez now led boarding operations that prioritized capturing enemy command staff alive. But the prisoners weren't being taken for traditional prisoner exchanges. They were being interrogated using methods that horrified alien observers who were used to more civilized forms of warfare. "The Zephyrians broke their own codes of honor when they killed our civilians," Amy explained to a group of junior officers. "So we don't feel obligated to follow their rules about how prisoners should be treated. We need information, and we get it." Dr. Kevin Walsh had been studying captured alien technology and adapting it faster than its creators believed possible. Human engineers seemed to understand alien systems better than the aliens themselves. They stripped away safety protocols, efficiency limitations, and design restrictions that the aliens considered essential. They build their weapons to last for decades, and their ships to be maintained by crews with minimal training, Kevin explained to the research team. "We build everything to work perfectly for exactly as long as we need it to work, and then we throw it away and build something better." The psychological impact of human tactics was devastating alien morale across multiple star systems, Captain Bill Thompson had become a legend among both human and alien forces, but for very different reasons. Thompson's destroyer, the UES Relentless, had developed a reputation for appearing exactly where enemy commanders least expected it. But Thompson wasn't just attacking military targets. He was broadcasting the locations of hidden alien supply depots moments before destroying them, demonstrating that nowhere was safe from human intelligence gathering. They know things they shouldn't. No, a captured Vorthan officer told his interrogators. They know our patrol schedules, our supply routes, our safe houses. It's like they can see through our security systems. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. Humans didn't have supernatural intelligence capabilities. They just approached information gathering differently than other species. Where aliens tried to protect information through complex encryption and security protocols, humans simply captured the people who had access to the information and made them share it. Major Lisa Green's Marines had become something that alien military doctrine had no category for. They weren't soldiers in the traditional sense, and they weren't commandos either. They were more like a natural disaster that specifically targeted enemy command structures. Lisa's units had learned to use alien survival instincts against them. Most galactic species had evolved from prey animals and retained deep-seated fears of being hunted. Human tactics deliberately triggered these fears, turning alien biology into a weapon of terror. "We don't try to outfight them," Lisa explained, to a group of new Marine officers. "We make them too scared to fight effectively. Most of these alien species surrender when they think they're about to die. We just make sure they always think they're about to die." Lieutenant Jake Parker was a young officer aboard the UES Thunderbolt, who had been assigned to document the systematic dismantling of alien fleet coordination. His reports made for disturbing reading, even for human military leaders. "The aliens fight like they're playing a complex strategy game with rules that everyone understands," Jake wrote in one report. "They expect certain moves to be followed by certain counter-moves. They plan for engagements that follow predictable patterns. Humans don't follow patterns. We just solve problems." The alien response to human tactics was to try harder to follow their own traditional approaches. Both the Zephyrian Empire and the Vorthan Collective brought in their best strategists and most advanced weapons systems. They developed new battle plans based on thousands of years of military experience. None of it worked. Human forces didn't respond to superior strategy by developing better strategies. They responded by making strategy irrelevant. When the Zephyrians deployed their most advanced battleships in a formation that had never been defeated, Captain Thompson simply ignored the battleships and destroyed their supply ships instead. The mighty fleet was forced to retreat when they ran out of fuel and ammunition. When the Vorthans used their superior numbers to surround a human task force, the humans didn't try to break out of the encirclement. They used it as an opportunity to destroy the entire Vorthan fleet at once by detonating captured Vorthan ammunition ships in the middle of their own formation. The elder species watched the conflict with growing alarm. Ambassador Zareth sent increasingly desperate messages to both warring factions, begging them to seek peace before it was too late. "You still do not understand what you have awakened," Zareth broadcast to the Zephyrian High Command. "The humans are not trying to defeat you in battle. They are trying to eliminate your ability to make war at all. Once they decide you are a threat, they will not stop until you are no longer capable of being a threat." The Crystalline Dominion made the unprecedented decision to break their ancient non-interference policies. They offered both alien factions access to technology that was millions of years more advanced than anything currently being used in the war. "We will provide you with weapons that can destroy planets," the crystalline representatives sang in their harmonic voices. "We will give you ships that can travel between galaxies. We will share knowledge that we have guarded for eons. All we ask is that you immediately cease hostilities with the humans." Both the Zephyrian Empire and the Vorthan Collective agreed instantly. Facing complete military collapse, they were willing to accept help from any source. The technology transfer began immediately. For 2 weeks, it seemed like the elder races had found a solution. Alien fleets equipped with ancient weapons and impossible technologies began to push back against human forces. Some human ships were destroyed, and some human operations were forced to retreat. Then the humans adapted. Dr. Walsh's research teams somehow figured out how to counter weapons that had been designed by civilizations that were old when the solar system was still forming. Human engineers took apart captured ancient technology and built their own versions that worked better than the originals. How is this possible? A crystalline representative asked during an emergency session with human leaders. Our technology is based on scientific principles that your species has not yet discovered. It should be impossible for you to understand it, much less improve upon it. Kevin Walsh looked tired when he answered. We don't try to understand your principles. We just figure out what the technology does, and then we build something that does it better. Understanding is optional. Results are what matter. The final straw came when both alien factions attempted to sue for peace. They sent their most senior diplomats to Kepler Station with terms that would have been generous in any previous galactic conflict. They offered territory, resources, technology, and formal apologies for the civilian deaths that had started the HFY War. President Katie Turner's response was broadcast across the galaxy. Her words were simple and delivered in a calm, reasonable tone that somehow made them more terrifying than any threat could have been. You brought war to our children, President, Turner said. You forced this choice upon us after we repeatedly requested that you leave us out of your conflict. You have demonstrated that you view peace as weakness and neutrality as an invitation to violence. The president paused, looking directly into the camera. Now you will live with the consequences until we decide you have learned your lesson. We will stop when we are satisfied that you understand the price of threatening human civilians. That decision is ours alone to make. The transmission ended without any indication of what terms might be acceptable to humanity or how long the war might continue. Ambassador Zareth met privately with Jake Morrison after the president's speech. The ancient being seemed smaller, somehow as if the weight of what was happening was physically crushing him. My people have lived for millions of years, Zareth said. We have seen species rise to greatness and fall to extinction. We have watched civilizations that spanned galaxies destroy themselves in wars that lasted for millennia. Jake waited for him to continue. But we have never seen anything like what your people are doing, Zareth continued. You are not fighting a war. You are teaching a lesson.